3.4 Drama. The English drama of the 16th century had reached the stages of morality. ठीक है जी 3.4 वापस हम स्टार्ट करते हैं 3.4 ड्रामा द इंग्लिश ड्रामा ऑफ द 16th century had reached the stages of morality plays and interludes. However, under the influence of classical drama, it developed further, especially in the second half of the 16th century. At that time, the Roman dramatist. At that time, the Roman dramatist Seneca's tragedies became a model for the English dramatists. Seneca's tragedies were translated into English. Another influence of classical drama appeared in the form of utilization of ancient stories in English plays. But Gorboduc, the first significant tragedy in English, has an original plot. In 1561 and 1562, Thomas Sackville and Thomas Norton produced the play Gorboduc, which was also called Farax and Porrex. It was written in blank verse and was divided into five acts. The plot of the play presents a conflict between two families who claim their right on throne. It was thus a political play dealing with the themes of violence and revenge. This play set a new trend for the English tragedies, which were written in prose as well as a blank verse and consisted of five acts. The themes of revenge, desire for power and authority, ambitiousness were also employed by the later dramatists of 16th century, including the university wits as well as Thomas Kyd and Shakespeare. These dramatists wrote a tragedy as well as comedy plays. Then we have the university wits. John Lilly served as a courtier to Queen Elizabeth I, and his 8 plays were performed before the Queen. He mostly produced comedies and employed both prose and blank verse in his plays. He picked characters and themes from classical myths, but also wrote pastoral plays like Love's Metamorphoses and The Woman in the Moon. In both these plays, the action occurs in ideal places, while nymphs, monsters, gods, and goddesses appear along with human characters. The Woman in the Moon. The Woman in the Moon is written in blank verse. In 1584, he produced the play, The Comedy of Alexander, and depicted the rivalry between two lovers, Alexander and Apelles. His plays Sappho and Phao and Mayan. It's and Mayan, ठीक है? Sappho and Phao and Mayan and Midas were based on material he borrowed from ancient Greek and Roman mythology. Lilly's play Mother Bombi is, however, different from his other works since all its characters are human beings. This play is a comedy and its characters are masters and servants. The conflict in the play owes to the problem of the generation gap. The younger characters strive to convince their elders to accept their affectionate relations. Lilly in this play seems to be influenced by Roman dramatists who used two sets of characters, including masters and servants, in their comic plays. George Peele is another member of the group called the University Wits and studied at Oxford University. He wrote his play in the blank verse. Like his contemporaries, Peele also uses mythical content as well as historical events and biblical stories to develop the plots of his plays. His play called The Arraignment of Paris 1580 presents the story of Trojan Prince Paris. In the initial part of the play, Paris betrays his beloved ईनन. अब देखिए इसमें ईनन बोलेंगे ना, इसे ईनन, इसमें ओ नहीं बोलते, ठीक है. And in the later half, he appears before a council of gods and wins the favor of goddess Diana. Diana या Diana, दो तरह के जो पढ़ लें. This play was performed before Queen Elizabeth I, and the audience could clearly see the resemblance between the queen and the goddess. Edward I is a play in which Peel used real events of English history. In his play, The Love of King David and a Fair Bathsheba, he dramatizes a biblical story. The most interesting of Peel's plays is titled The Old Wives' Tale. It is a play written another play. It is a play within another play. It opens with three travelers going astray in the wood and taking refuge in the cottage of a blacksmith. Their hostess, the blacksmith's wife, maid, entertains them by telling them a fairy tale. As she narrates the story, the characters of the story appear on the stage and begin to act. This technique of showing a play within a play is also employed by Peel's contemporary dramatists Christopher Marlowe and Shakespeare. Robert Greene, a student of Cambridge University, besides being a prose writer, was also a dramatist who significantly contributed to the genre of comedy. Although Greene was inspired by the classical writers, yet he used native settings to present the action in his plays. He wrote in blank verse and successfully experimented with the technique of blending the main plots of the plays with the subplots. For instance, the plot in his play, The Honourable History of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungie, deals with magic and its power, and Greene successfully blends it with the subplot based on love relationships. The action in this play occurs in Oxford as well as in Suffolk in England. The Scottish History of James IV is another comedy by Greene, which he adapted from an Italian history story. Similarly, his play Orlando Furioso is inspired by the view of Aristo, an ancient Greek philosopher. Greene also collaborated with Thomas Lodge, who studied at Oxford University, and together the two produced a play titled A Looking Glass for London and England. This play relates the biblical story of the fall of the ancient city of Nineveh. It is a morality play showing the downfall of those who defy God. During the course of the play, Hosea and Jonah, true prophets of God, appear and condemn the sinners. The play ends with Jonah projecting the significance of repentance, which ultimately leads to forgiveness of God. In addition to this play, Thomas Lodge also wrote a historical play, The Wounds of Civil War. This play dramatizes the real conflict between two Roman generals, Gaius Marius and his subordinate Sulla. The most renowned of all the university wits is Christopher Marlowe, who besides being a significant poet also wrote tragic plays with extremely ambitious protagonists or central characters. Both Marlowe and Shakespeare were born in the same year, but Marlowe died in a brawl which he has only 29 years old, and consequently left a smaller body of literary works. Unlike Shakespeare, who wrote 36 plays, Marlowe wrote fewer plays but still holds the position of the most important predecessors of Shakespeare. Born to a shoemaker, Marlowe received a scholarship and attended Cambridge University. His first play is Dido, the Queen of Carthage. It is a historical play relating to the tragic tale of Dido's love for the Trojan warrior Aeneas. Dido commits suicide when Aeneas betrays her and sets out for Italy. Thus, Marlowe, like his contemporary dramatists, employs ancient myths. Similarly, he also uses historical events to form plots of his plays. This is evident in Marlowe's next play, Tamburlaine, which has two parts. It tells the story of the rise of Asian It tells the story of the rise of Central Asian Emperor Amir Temur. ये आमिर तैमूर है, वैसे ही आमिर ही है, ठीक है. Marlowe presents Temur as a shepherd boy in Scythia. उसके बाद हमारे पास आता है, now located in Eastern Europe, who managed to become a powerful king. Marlowe depicts his protagonist Tamburlaine as an ambitious and ruthless man who successfully conquers different countries including Russia, Caxus, Syria and Egypt, and thus expands his empire. Tamburlaine exercises his authority by keeping his rivals imprisoned in cages and using their backs as footstools. The tragic aspect of this play is that despite his power, Temur dies a natural death. Marlowe's next play, The Jew of Malta, seems to be inspired by the actual event called the Siege of Malta in 1565, when the Ottoman troops attempted to conquer the Mediterranean island of Malta. Barabbas, the protagonist of the play, wants to take the revenge from the ruler of Malta, who has confiscated all his property and wealth in order to pay the expenses of the troops fighting against the Ottoman attack. In order to implement his vicious plan, Barabbas uses his daughter Abigail and his slave Ithamor, but later kills them both. The play ends with Barabbas' death caused due to his getting trapped in the plan he made for destroying his enemies. Edward II is another historical play written by Marlowe about the English king who ruled for 20 years but was finally deposed. Similarly, his play The Massacre at Paris is based on the actual event of the killing of Protestants in Paris in 1572. However, Marlowe's most successful play is the tragic history of the life and death of Dr. Faustus. This play is a dramatization. अच्छा ये दो हैं, एक है dramatization और एक आधा dramatization. हम dramatization क्या दिए? This play is a dramatization of the famous legend of the German magician ये था, इसको बोलते हैं योना, नहीं पता नहीं इसका था ना जोन, ये तो जोना लग रहा है ना, बहुत सा योना या क्या इसे बोलते हैं, देख लीजिएगा. Magician Joanna Faust Faustus, the protagonist of the play, like Marlowe, belongs to a humble family but manages to receive education at Wittenberg University in Germany. He is a learned man who has formally studied various disciplines, including mathematics, law, medicine, theology, but he is eager to learn magic and witchcraft. In his pursuit to receive the forbidden knowledge, Faustus sells his soul to the devil. Thus, Faustus gets 24 years during which Mephistopheles serves him. However, none of Faustus' initial plans materialize after his getting magical powers. For instance, he aims to build a solid wall around his country to defend it against the attacks of enemies. He desires to dig a canal to bring water of the river Shrine to irrigate the land, and he also wants to provide warm clothes to the poor students of the university. But with all his magical powers, he manages to perform petty tricks like making the people disappear or grow horns on the heads of his enemies. As the play proceeds, Faustus realizes how he has been cheated by the devil. Eager, confident, and ambitious in the planning in the beginning of the play, Faustus becomes disappointed and anxious about his life hereafter. He regrets his decision of selling his soul to the devil and anticipates the horrors of hell he is soon to witness. The play ends with the devil taking a Faustus' soul to be tormented in hell. The play thus preaches the Christian doctrine of virtuous people getting rewarded for their good deeds and evildoers getting punished in the life hereafter. Marlowe depicts Faustus as a complex character who is torn between his ambition to become powerful and at the same time warned by his Christian moral values about the dangers of committing heinous sins. Dangers of committing heinous sins. Faustus' internal conflict is externalized in the symbolic characters of good and bad angels. Whenever Faustus has to make a choice, these angels appear and give him different suggestions. The good angel forbids him for indulging in evil practices and magic and necromancy and encourages him to repent before God. While the bad angel paints a rosy picture of the advantages of learning magic and becoming a powerful man. Initially, Faustus is happy with his pact with the devil, but gradually he realizes that he has been fooled and fears his damnation. The play Dr. Faustus, despite a loose plot, contains several significant soliloquies and or speeches delivered by characters when they are alone on the stage and think loudly. In the initial acts, Faustus expresses his ambitious desires, and as the play approaches its end, Faustus is made to articulate and his anguish. Especially Faustus' last speech reflects his miserable condition. He has but one bare hour to live, and he wishes the time to stop. He wants to leap up to God and receives his mercy, but the evil pulls him down, and he is unable to save his soul. The character of Dr. Faustus is thus a soul which is claimed by the forces of good and evil. Dr. Faustus is therefore a morality play inspired by the morality plays popular in the 16th century England. Marlowe also displays the seven deadly sins. Faustus asks Mephistopheles to show him the seven deadly sins, and they are made to march on the stage. Thus, Marlowe implies the convention of showing a play within a play, like his contemporaries Peele and Shakespeare. Faustus also desires to see the popular mythical character of Helen of Troy, and Mephistopheles fulfills his wish. Seeing the apparition of Helen, Faustus exclaims, was this the face that launched 1,000 ships? Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burned the topless towers of Ilium? And burned the topless towers of Ilium? Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships and burned the topless towers of Ilium? The appearance of Helen reflects the influence of ancient Greek and Roman mythology and on the English literary artists of the 16th century. Faustus is a representative of the spirit of the Renaissance, which draws its inspiration from the ancient European civilizations. He rejoices at the sight of this beautiful woman whose beauty is celebrated in Greek mythology. Another instance of the influence of Greek mythology in the play of Dr. Faustus appears in the very beginning of which, when the chorus reflects to the fall of Icarus. The audience can see the resemblance in the characters of Dr. Faustus and Icarus, since both receive success but meet a tragic end due to their wrong decisions. Thus, Marlowe blends the elements of morality plays, Greek mythology, and the spirit of the Renaissance in his tragic play, Dr. Faustus. Another tragedy which contributed greatly to this genre of plays in the England of the 16th century started the Spanish tragedy. It was written by Thomas Kidd, and this play was presented in early 1580s and became a trend setter for the later plays revolving around the theme of revenge, such as Hamlet by Shakespeare. It tells the story of several murders and conspiracies based upon revenge. This play also contained melodramatic elements like the blending of real and fake madness of Hieronymo, whose son gets murdered. The murder of Lorenzo and Balthazar during a stage play, and suicides of Belimpedia and Hieronymo. The play opens with the speech of the ghost of Andrea, a Spanish nobleman who gets killed by the Portuguese Prince Balthazar in a battle between Spain and France. Andrea's ghost claims that his death will be avenged. In the play, Andrea's friend Horatio, the son of Hieronymo, and the Marshal of Spain, also gets killed by Balthazar and Lorenzo, the son of the Duke of Castle. Horatio's death compels his father Hieronymo and his beloved Belimpedia to plan the murder of his killers. They conspire to present a play in which they act along with Lorenzo and Balthazar. While acting in the play, first Hieronymo kills Lorenzo, and then Belimpedia also stabs and kills Balthazar before committing suicide. When the audience, including the King of Spain and the Viceroy of Portugal, realize that the killings are real, then Hieronymo also kills himself after he stabs and kills the Duke of Castle. Thus, Thomas Kidd effectively employs the technique of a play within a play. The play ends with the reappearance of the ghost who recalls the names of different characters who died during the play and also expresses his satisfaction. इसे बोलेंगे ए होगा ना शायद. A, now my hopes have ended in their effects when blood and sorrow finish my desires. And now my hopes. ठीक है. In addition to these speeches of the chorus, different characters also utter emotional speeches. Hieronymus dialogues, especially those he utters when he hears the screams of Belimpedia and discovers the dead body of his son. Horatio expresses his shock blended with his sorrow. What what murderous spectacle is this? What murderous spectacle is this? A man hanged up and all the murderers gone. And in my power, to lay the guilt on me. This place was made for pleasure, not for death. Not for death. नहीं इसका नहीं पढ़ना. Those garments that he wears I oft have seen. Alas, it is Horatio, my sweet son. Again पढ़ते हैं. What murderous spectacle is this? What murderous spectacle is this? A man hanged up and all the murderers gone. And in my power to lay guilt on me. This place was made for pleasure, not for death. Those garments that he wears I oft have seen. Alas, it is Horatio, my sweet son. The Spanish tragedy is said to be source of for Shakespeare's famous play Hamlet. There are many points of similarity between the play The Spanish Tragedy and the play Hamlet. Both plays imply the theme of revenge. The central characters Hieronymo and Hamlet pretend to be mad to hide their real intentions. They successfully take revenge but also meet tragic deaths. Both Shakespeare and Keats employ the technique of play within play. They also make the ghost of murdered characters demand revenge. However, none of Keats' characters matches the character of Hamlet, a matchless product of Shakespeare's genius. Besides the character of Hamlet, Shakespeare produces several unique characters and presents them in a variety of situations in his different plays. Shakespeare appeared on the literary scene in the last decade of the 16th century. He was a professional playwright but also became a matchless literary artist. His plays when produced on stage during his lifetime received acclaim and after his death continued to draw the attention of students of English literature. Shakespeare's greatness as a dramatist owes to the various dramatic works produced by his foreigners in the 16th century who, with their numerous plays, contributed to the evolution of drama and brought it to a position where Shakespeare took over. With Shakespeare, English drama reaches its zenith. The dramatic works of Shakespeare are discussed in detail in the following unit. अब हमारे पास शुक्र अल्लाह ये मुकम्मल हो चुके हैं. एक बार ये समरी पॉइंट्स देख लेते हैं. Summary points. English Renaissance began in the 16th century and continued into the next century. Different kings and queens of the Tudor dynasty ruled Britain during the 16th century. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, England completely severed its relation with the Roman Catholic Church and Protestantism became the state religion. The British began to trade with India and started making colonies in different parts of the newly discovered continent of America. Different English translations of the Bible were made. English prose was widely used for writing historical records, producing pamphlets, writing autobiographies, giving instructions, producing literary criticism, and even telling stories for entertainment. The sonnet and blank verse were the new forms of poetry frequently used and further developed by English poets and dramatists. Edmund Spenser wrote his long nationalistic narrative poem, The Fairy Queen. Christopher Marlowe and other university wits also produced various significant literary works. William Shakespeare produced poetry in the form of sonnets as well as narrative poems in addition to his several plays. हमारे इस चैप्टर का अख्ताम हुआ चाहता है। जज़ाकल्लाह खैरन।